There is a theory that a ghost attaches itself to the one who sees it. An entity that could not leave this world even after death holds a deep resentment, and it is the same as saying it attaches to a living person who can resolve it. There are many cases where a strange form begins to be seen one day and eventually follows as a chilling ghost. Today, you will see the form of a somewhat bizarre ghost. The story I am about to tell you is a memory that still sends a chill down my spine years later. That day, as usual, I was only able to leave work well past 11 p.m. I ran to the bus stop to catch the bus, but unfortunately, the last bus had already left. I had no choice but to walk home. The place where I lived was an old residential area on the outskirts of Seoul. Streetlights were sparsely lit and people were rare late at night. As I walked alone down the silent alley, my steps quickened without me realizing it. And then, it happened. The sound of a shoe heel clicking the pavement echoed in the stillness. At first, I just thought someone was walking behind me, but strangely, the rhythm was somehow off. A normal gait should feel like the toe touches first, but this was a reversed sound, as if the heel was forcefully stamping the ground. I turned around and saw a man under the streetlight. He was dressed in a black suit, but strangely, he was walking backward in the same direction as me. To be precise, he was looking straight at me, but his steps were moving backward. That sight was so unnatural and grotesque that my legs almost gave out. What was scarier was the man's gaze. He was staring straight at me. His eyes were fixed on my face as if to hold my gaze so I couldn't run away. Goosebumps covered my whole body. Thinking I shouldn't let him know I noticed, I bowed my head and hurried my steps. But the sound of his footsteps was getting closer. I finally ran home, as if sprinting, and slammed the front door shut. My heart was pounding frantically, and I was so out of breath that I couldn't even breathe properly. That night, I couldn't sleep a wink. It felt like I kept hearing that shoe sound right next to my ear. It was a few days later. That day, I had a dinner outing, and my way home was late again. My body was heavy with alcohol, and my steps were slow. The moment I entered the alley entrance, a cold chill ran down my spine. That familiar, yet absolutely unwanted sound returned. I instinctively turned around, and I froze right there. The man was there, dressed in the same black suit. He was again looking straight at me and walking backward. His face was clearly visible in the streetlight. A pale face, as if dried up, a head that didn't move an inch, and eyes that didn't blink at all. His eyeballs were rolled up high, showing more of the whites, and that expressionless face was impossible to believe belonged to a living person. I moved my feet, thinking I had to run away, but perhaps because of the alcohol, my legs wouldn't move as my mind wished. My feet kept feeling heavy. Even amid that, the clack sound followed me at a constant interval. Then I thought the sound had disappeared, but the moment I bravely turned my head slightly, I saw the man right behind me, just a few steps away, approaching as if thrusting his face toward mine, walking in reverse. I really felt like I would stop breathing. I considered screaming, but my mouth wouldn't open. Instead, I ran to my house with all my might. When I closed the front door and leaned against it, the sound of the shoe heel hitting the floor still seemed to echo, clack, clack, in my ears. But no matter how much I checked outside, there was no one. After that day, I became afraid of my way home from work. Because of the thought that the man might appear again and follow me, walking backward, I couldn't bring myself to take a step at night. That day, I deliberately chose a different route. I thought if I just avoided the usual alley, I wouldn't see the man. Honestly, it was ridiculous that as an adult I was thinking such superstitious thoughts, but I was that afraid. After a drink, I chose a main road where even the streetlights were sparse. Old warehouse buildings and storefronts that looked like abandoned houses lined both sides of the road, and there was almost no foot traffic. I unnecessarily hurried my pace, but again, that shoe heel sound was heard. A tension that felt like my breath would stop engulfed my entire body. I vowed countless times to myself, never turn around. Absolutely don't look this time. But my steps got faster, and the sound, like a lie, also closely followed right behind me. It was as if someone was stamping their heel right behind the back of my head. Unable to endure it, I finally whipped my head around, and I froze right there. This time, the man was walking backward right in front of me. He was walking backward slowly, looking straight at me at a distance of less than 3 steps. His face, seen up close, was even more horrifying. Blood vessels in both eyes were burst and fiercely bloodshot, and his lips were ghastly blue. Yet, those lips slowly parted and formed a strange smile. At that moment, his steps no longer retreated. Instead, he was approaching me in reverse, clicking his heel backward 1 step at a time. I screamed right there, turned my body, and ran. Throughout the run, the clack-clack shoe sound persistently followed behind me. No matter how fast I ran, the sound was practically glued to my footsteps. Even after reaching home, closing, and locking the front door, the sound seemed to continue echoing in my ears for a long time. After that day, I spent days of extreme anxiety. My steps would feel heavy on the way home from work, and even during the day, I would often turn my head, feeling like someone was following me. Then one day, it was on the bus ride to work. I was sitting by the window, staring blankly outside, when the scene that instantly caught my eye was so spine-chilling. People were casually walking on the sidewalk next to the road. Among them, the man in the black suit was standing. The man was mixed in with the people, but he wasn't walking straight. As always, with his back toward me, he was walking backward, cutting through the crowd. What was bizarre was that despite this, no one found it strange. As if I were the only one seeing that sight. Suddenly, my gaze and his eyes met exactly. He was staring straight at me through the bus window. My breath caught in my throat, and I stood up abruptly from my seat. The other passengers looked at me strangely, but I couldn't say a word. After that day, the man appeared everywhere. On the glass wall of the office building lobby, and beyond the full glass window of the restaurant where I went for lunch, he always appeared with the sound of backward walking shoes. The most terrifying moment was one day when I was about to turn off the office lights after working late. The computer screen turned off, and my reflection appeared on the dark window pane. But right behind me, the silhouette of a man was visible. It was the man who walked backward. He was slowly turning his head from behind me and looking straight at me. I screamed and turned the light back on. Then there was nothing, but the feeling of being stared at on the back of my head at that moment is still vivid. The man appeared even when I left the office, walked the streets, and even on the bus. However, I believed my home was safe. I thought strange ghost stories always happened only outside, but that belief was quickly shattered. That day, I was unusually tired and fell asleep earlier than usual, and in the early morning, I woke up to a strange sound. It was the sound of a shoe heel clicking the floor. At first, I thought it was coming from the upstairs neighbor, but I soon realized the sound was echoing right from the living room next to my bedroom. I held my breath and listened closely inside the blanket. The sound got closer and closer, and the sound stopped right in front of the door, and I cautiously turned my eyes to look at the bedroom door, and there, the tip of a foot was visible. The toe of a shoe was showing beneath the door crack, But the direction was strange. It was standing with its back to the outside, not facing the inside of the room. In other words, he was standing backward in front of my bedroom door. At that moment, my body stiffened, and I couldn't even breathe. And the door slowly opened, and the man walked in backward. The man in the black suit, with only his back visible, walked slowly backward around my room without ever turning his head. His toes were always facing backward, yet the direction was precisely toward the bed. I closed my eyes as if I were fainting right there. The next morning, when I woke up, the door was closed and the room was quiet, but the sound of footsteps still lingered in my ears. I realized I couldn't handle it alone anymore. In the end, I was introduced by an acquaintance to a mudang on the outskirts. The mudang, or Korean shaman, is a spiritual expert in traditional Korean shamanism who mediates between the divine and the spirit world. They are not merely fortune tellers, but religious figures who resolve the deep resentment or han of the deceased and ward off bad luck for the living. The old mudang, sitting in a corner of the yard in a house like a traditional hanok, narrowed her eyes and muttered as soon as I entered, "Something has followed you." At that single word, a chill went down my spine. The mudang nodded toward my feet without even looking straight at my face, as if the man were standing right next to my feet. "What is it that is caught on your feet, making you look backward?" I was speechless at the mudang's words. She had accurately pinpointed the site I had never mentioned. The mudang did not perform a ritual. Instead, she told me to leave as soon as possible. She said that the whole ryong, wandering spirit, wandering the neighborhood, was also attached to me, and she told me to move to a place so far away that the spirit could not follow, and if possible, I must cross a river. She said the whole ryong cannot cross water, and only then could I escape. Furthermore, she told me never to go near that neighborhood after moving. She said it might already be one with me, so absolutely do not go near the spirit. At her words, I eventually moved to a place more than an hour away, crossing a river. I prepared the move quickly like a thunderbolt to leave as soon as possible. Since that day, the shoe sound is no longer heard. But even now, sometimes I unconsciously check behind me, just in case the man is still standing with his back to me. The story ends here. The backward-walking man ghost is impressive yet very chilling. We might need to think about why he started walking backward. Looking at the mudang's words, there is content about trying to look backward. I think maybe that's the reason he couldn't go to the afterlife. He is facing forward, but his legs and face are forced to look backward. Could there be a special circumstance? Well, whatever the reason, from the perspective of the person seeing it, it can only be shocking. Ultimately, this story asks us all, what is behind you, what part of your past that you desperately tried to ignore or failed to see is haunting you? Who is to say that the moment you turn, your shadow won't start walking backward toward you? Until the next story begins, may your steps be aimed forward. Watch your back. We are always right here beside you.